The conversation lasted nearly an hour and a half, 1 hour and 25 minutes. To be exact, the president naturally touched on the issue of the situation in Ukraine, particularly in light of Donald Trump's upcoming participation in the NATO summit in Turkey on July 7th to 8th. However, Kiev and its European sponsors are banking on prolonging and even escalating the conflict, as well as on terrorism against the civilian population. Our president has described a reality on the battlefield, where Russian armed forces are advancing confidently, liberating one settlement after another. Vladimir Putin expressed hope that the negotiation process, based on the Memorandum of Understanding between the United States and Iran, will allow for mutually acceptable long-term solutions to key issues in the settlement.
Trump and Putin held talks on the Ukraine war, Iran, and fresh diplomatic moves in a high-stakes call. Putin briefed Trump on what Moscow described as the latest battlefield gains in the Ukraine war. Putin updated Trump on Russia's offensive around Kostiantynivka, according to presidential aide. Putin told Trump that Russian forces intend to press on toward the key remaining Ukrainian strongholds in the area.
Today, July 4th, is a national holiday in the United States. It marks the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. On the eve of the holiday, Russian President Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin sent a congratulatory telegram to U.S. President Donald Trump on this occasion, in which he expressed his confidence that establishing constructive, equal, and mutually beneficial relations is in the interest not only of our peoples, but also the entire international community. I would like to remind you that earlier, on June 12th, on the occasion of Russia Day, the U.S. President sent a warm congratulatory message to Vladimir Putin. In it, Donald Trump paid, and I quote, "tribute to the rich history and culture of our country, as well as to the resilience of the Russian people." Of course, today's telephone conversation between the two heads of state began with President Vladimir Putin personally congratulating Donald Trump and the entire American people on this significant holiday. He recalled Russia's contribution to the formation of the American state. In this context, the presidents noted the importance of treating with care the shared chapters of history that bind us together. They particularly emphasized that our peoples will never forget our alliance during World War II. Today, of course, America is widely celebrating Independence Day. The festivities are grand and on a massive scale, just as Donald Trump knows how to organize them. And our president, of course, took note of this. This was their fourth talk this year. Naturally, it was not merely a courtesy call, but a substantive and highly constructive discussion. This conversation allowed for a frank discussion of pressing issues on the bilateral and international agendas. Incidentally, the conversation lasted nearly an hour and a half, 1 hour and 25 minutes. To be exact, the presidents naturally touched on the issue of the situation in Ukraine, particularly in light of Donald Trump's upcoming participation in the NATO summit in Turkey on July 7th to 8th. The U.S. president reaffirmed his readiness to facilitate the swiftest possible cessation of hostilities and the search for peaceful solutions to overcome the crisis. His special representatives, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, will continue their mediation efforts and stand ready to visit Moscow at a convenient time. The Russian side once again emphasized a preference for political and diplomatic resolution of the conflict, while taking into account Russia's well-known fundamental positions. However, Kiev and its European sponsors are banking on prolonging and even escalating the conflict, as well as on terrorism against the civilian population. At the same time, the European pro-war faction is basing its position on a false perception of the overall situation and the state of affairs along the front lines. Our president has described the reality on the battlefield, where Russian armed forces are advancing confidently, liberating one settlement after another. An important milestone in the liberation of the entire territory of the DPR was the establishment of control over such a key stronghold of the Ukrainian armed forces as Konstantinovka. And no matter how desperately the Kiev regime clings to the remaining fortified areas, our army will inevitably take them. Regarding the situation surrounding Iran, Vladimir Putin expressed hope that the negotiation process, based on the Memorandum of Understanding between the United States and Iran, will allow for mutually acceptable long-term solutions to key issues in the settlement. We have reaffirmed our readiness to provide practical assistance to efforts aimed at de-escalating and stabilizing the situation in the region. Donald Trump, in turn, thanked the Russian side for its balanced position and constructive proposals. Speaking about bilateral relations, the presidents emphasized the importance of continuing dialogue, including on military, political, and, of course, economic issues. There are tremendous prospects for mutually beneficial cooperation between our countries in this area. To this end, Donald Trump stressed the conflict in Ukraine should be resolved as soon as possible. During the conversation, they noted, in particular, the symbolic significance of the fact that a joint Russian-American crew will be launched to the International Space Station from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in the coming days. This is a concrete example confirming that the two powers are interested in working closely together across a wide range of areas. Naturally, this also applies to the cultural sphere, which unites our peoples who share mutual affinity. Donald Trump, by the way, mentioned that he is personally fascinated by the Hermitage in St. Petersburg, and the topic of soccer was also touched upon. Vladimir Putin, drawing on Russia's experience from 2018, expresses hope for the continued success of the World Cup. The leaders agreed to stay in touch and speak again by phone in the near future. The president reminded Donald Trump that he has a standing invitation to visit Russia. The Russian side had initiated the previous phone call on June 14th, Donald Trump's 80th birthday. This time, it was the American partners who proposed holding the conversation specifically on the day marking the 250th anniversary of U.S. independence, which speaks volumes.
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that we will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest news makers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the U.S. will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry guards.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Deep dive into burning issues.
It's often said DRC could be the richest country in the whole world. It's because of what sits underneath.
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HT videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.